You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com. Welcome to Volatility Views, the premier program for volatility traders. Each week, we'll take a deep dive into the world of volatility with in-depth analysis, trading activity reviews, strategy breakdowns, cutting-edge education, and much more. We'll also bring you exclusive conversations with the traders, researchers, and asset managers who are reshaping the volatility landscape. If it involves volatility, then you'll find it on Volatility Views. And now, it's time to take a deep dive into the world of volatility. It's time for Volatility Views.
All right, everybody. That music means we are back once again. It is Friday. It is noon Central. It is 1 p.m. Eastern. Do you know what's cooking in the world of vol? Well, let's find out together, shall we? It is time once again for Volatility Views. My name, of course, Mark Longo from theoptionsinsider.com. Hope you're having a good start to your trading year. It's really our first full trading week. And then next week, we're right back off again for the Monday MLK holiday. So a lot of shortened, truncated holiday weeks to start the year. But now we're kicking it off. And man, I said it at the end of last year. I said January kind of comes in like a lion these days, and we are certainly seeing that yet again. Just another wild week of whipsaws in action. Should be a fun one, so stay tuned. Of course, if you want to stay tuned beyond vol views, you want to come back for options oddities. Man, we were talking crazy quantum straddles last week and all sorts of madness. You got to check out options oddities. Only one place to find it, theoptionsinsider.com/pro is the place to go to learn more. As we learn who's joining us on the old Vol Views program today, pleased to welcome back on our old pal, the Rock Lobster himself, Mr. Andrew Giovinazzi from OptionPit.com. Mr. Rock Lobster, welcome back to the world of volatility, sir.
Well, it is a pleasure to be back here in volatility land.
Maybe we'll change the show to Vol Land. What do you think?
Volatility land kind of, there's so many, you see like these podcasts on Twitter, and I can't, it's hard to keep up with all these things. So I just listen to this one.
That's the nice thing about Vol Views. We predate them all. So it's kind of nice. We are the OG in the vol talking space. And let's talk some vol, listeners. It is time for the Volatility Review.
It's time to break down the latest developments in the volatility trading world. It's time for the Volatility Review.
All right, everybody, let's do this thing. Let's talk some vol. And man, what a week of vol it was and indeed still is out there. Wild week. It started off the week, I was kind of waving my finger at Uncle Mike on the option block on Monday saying, man, all of your post-election rally is gone. We are back below 5,800. Seems like the Bears have the bit in their teeth to start the new year. Vol was popping, got up to the low 20s. And then, of course, the inflation number came in and just cut the legs out from under the Bears and turned the market just right around. Here we are, listeners, as we are recording the show right now, we are back north of 6,000. Talking a couple of hundred handles in the S&P in just a few sessions. So it's been a wild time. A lot of that coming, of course, on a very aggressive rally on Wednesday. And then today, no slouch itself. The S&P up 75 handles, about 1.25% out there. The Dow up 1% and the NASDAQ up 1.75%. It's like the bulls were saying, you know what? Just despite the bears, we're going to rally it all the way back to 6K. That's what we're going to do. Exactly 6K. Then maybe we'll stutter and fall by the wayside. But we got to get to 6K again. And to their credit, they did it. Vol coming crashing back to earth after getting frothy, after getting back up into the low 20s, listeners. Now back below a 16 handle, 15.75 as we kicked off the show here today, listeners. That puts us down about 3.5 points from where we were on the show just this time a week ago. And, of course, we got even higher in the interim. So a wild time on the vol scene. I told you, I said, don't sleep through the first few weeks of January because a lot of stuff pops off. Then, of course, we get other stuff thrown into the mix that we'll get into later, fun stuff like UVIX reverse splits and all sorts of fun to add into the mix. So it's just a wild time in vol, listeners. VVIX reflecting that. It's coming crashing back to earth as well, but it's still frothy. It's at a 99, down 14 points from where it was this time a week ago. So just a wild week that continues to be wild as we record this show. Mr. Rock Lobster, just a crazy start to the year. Our first full trading week, really delivering the goods, sir. What caught your eye from a vol perspective this past week?
I think the biggest thing is, with SPX is 6,000, and if you look at, let's say, the last month, so we have pretty good move here. But even every time SPX hits 6,000, VIX can't really make a new low. So, we're trading 1577 going into a 3-day weekend today. The last time SPX was this high, it was, I think, December 26th, and VIX was 1463. So we can't, at least the market anyway, is not really making those like that. I guess you like to see that confirming volatility low, right? So the last time we were 6039 SPX, December 26th, we were like right around like the low 14s. On Monday, December 17th, we were at 6053, and I believe VIX was 1498. So it's like, I guess the short answer is, with SPX rallying 1.2%, it's, that's way over a 16 volatility anyway. So the fact that, VIX is marking down you are getting a little bit of vol compression. Vol's dropping a little bit, but it's one of these markets where you're looking at us at 6,000 and you're like, we could be at 5,800 by Thursday. You don't have that confirming collapse in volatility that you normally get with rallies, where you get folks selling options, being more aggressive selling options, selling puts when they think they're free money, stuff like that. I mean, that's really what crushes vol. You want volatility to go down, have fun, go out and selling a bunch of puts. That's a way to crush vol. So even with this rally and the reaction of volatility, I'm not seeing that basically. So like, this is good. The rally's good. I think the inflation numbers, I guess we'll see what next month's inflation numbers are, right? So there'll be a new next month or the second month after, I guess, as the new next administration takes over. How those numbers are going to look. and we go from there. But I think part of, and to be honest, I didn't quite see what the catalyst was for today, except that the market was lower earlier in the week and now it's not. So like I'm looking at our 5 days here. I mean, we started the week at 57.80 and for the most part it's been up ever since. And here we are back at 6,000 again. So I think the 6,000 is back to this level where this is sort of the show me level. You got a new administration. Are they going to do something to kind of keep the bond yields in check? Are you going to see anything real, or has it all been just whatever political hogwash like it always ends up being? So I think it's exciting time to trade. It's certainly an exciting time to invest. And we'll see how it all plays out. But for right now, that normal like SPX rolling back to highs without the confirming vol is always a little troubling for me personally. I would have been more confident in this rally holding if VIX, probably into the 14 handle by today. That would have made things a little better for me.
It's hard to get that low, sir, and we're ripping.
Yes, ripping all that's over true. The place. It's like where does the 1.3% rally come from? What news was out today? What things happened? But it really doesn't matter what it is because the market's going up. So I'm certainly not going to spend a lot of time fighting the rally, but you're getting kind of the short SPX trade, which I do have on a little bit. I sold my calls yesterday early in the day in SPY, which is galling me just slightly. But that like right now, like short vol, short VIX is not working. At least today, it's a rough trade for today.
I got a feeling you'll have another chance, or you'll have another bite at the apple. So I wouldn't be too mad.
I do believe so, but I'm looking at, let's say, the volatility and the 6,100 calls for 30 days out, and it's always, it's good to see those kind of sensitive options, right? So we just rallied 1.something%, and according to Live Vol, today's the 17th. I have this is the 6,100 call, mind you. The volatility on this call yesterday was 11.05, and today, again, the call's up substantially, but the volatility is 11.51. So while VIX is down because of, let's just call it, how VIX is built to go down when SPX goes up, because all the weighting shifts lower as volatility rises, as SPX rises. But volatility at the strike does not look like it's going down. Volatility at the 6,000 strike is up today as well. It's up from 11.15 to 12.63. So volatility per strike in the February cycle, Feb 21, which is roughly the VIX cycle, the vols per strike are actually up a little bit. And I think that maybe they oversold it a little bit because of the 3-day weekend into this, but it ain't coming down. So does that mean we go up higher, or do we retrace? I don't know. But at least for right now, you're not getting, you're getting a very small change in volatility. So even with VIX down, most of, let me see, VIX options. So like the 17 level puts in VIX for February, I've only moved a nickel today. So they're only up a nickel, almost no change in performance in those at all. So while you see like the cash index moving around, the futures are kind of like, they went down this week, but they ain't going down any farther. They're certainly not, it looks like they don't want to go below 17 as of right now. So, and that's where the market is. So we do have a lot of big tech earnings coming out. We do have the inauguration. And I have to say that, because we had that sort of election hangover, remember, like we had that big vol bid, the election, everybody's freaking out about it. And then it happened, right? Then, we had an election, Trump's elected, relatively little noise afterward. And now I think from a volatility point of view, they want to get past the inauguration. For whatever reason, I think traders want to see the transfer of power happen, and on we go. So again, social media, regular media, they're blowing up all kinds of whatever silly story they can about what's going on. So, and we'll see what happens. So, but from a volatility point of view, even on with this rockin' day, VIX volatility per strike in the VIX sensitive 30-day stuff is not going down. So you take that what you want, but generally you do like to see with a rally a decent real collapse in volatility at the money, and we're not getting it today. It ain't happening.
Well, our chat just did a little informal poll of themselves, Mr. Rock Lobster, while you were talking. They were asking themselves if they're buying this rally or fading it. It seems like a lot of them are fading it. A couple are buying in. Others are saying, they're not convinced. They're just sitting on the sidelines. Let the Tigers fight for a bit, see what happens. There's certain logic to all of those. You can't argue with any of them. Except the fact, Mr. Rock Lobster, that you shouldn't mock Uncle Mike and the Bulls on Monday, because that just obviously kicks them into high gear and they go crazy for a week. All right, let's see what's going crazy out here on the vol surface this week, listeners. Coming into the start of the show, we had that Jan future slipping slightly below the 16 handle, right around 1596 or so as we kicked off the show. Puts it down almost 3.5 points, about 3.45 from where it was a week ago. The Feb future hanging firm at a 17 even when we kicked off the show. Puts it down almost 2.5 points there, about 2.4 out there as well. And of course, with vol coming in, you're not going to sniff a 20 handle. The closest you get is the SEP future all the way out, listeners. That's about as far as we're going here today, and that gets you to about a 1902 out there. But we were kind of half joking on the show last week that with so much going on in the market and in the world, the term structure was eerily, almost spookily flat. It has gotten a little bit more shape back to it, but still, Mr. Rock Lobster, what are your thoughts on what we're seeing out there in the vol surface this week?
Well, I think generally when you have like contango, what we call contango is, the vol futures are predicting more volatility in the future, which is normal. It's also a reflection of the term structure and how basically how vol sets up, how those futures are structured. So, a contango structure is normal. So right now, but you have VIX cash relatively close to the future still. So normally when I see that kind of term structure, it's still for a more unstable VIX and mostly a more unstable SPX. Like if you look at the action this week, it's not really smooth. It's kind of like jaggedy. And normally what I see is when you have the futures closer, like you're in contango, so all the futures are above the cash, but that cash level is relatively close to the futures. That's generally a higher realized vol in SPX. So expect SPX to move around a lot. Like if we dumped this entire rally on Wednesday, it wouldn't surprise me. And that's what we have. So, I mean, from that point of view, it is a term structure that at least expects a little more realized volatility in SPX. That's what I would say. But anyway, that's what I would say. That's the observation for our the current term structure. So, and again, if like VIX keeps creeping up toward the future, expect more realized vol in SPX. That's generally that's a trend that you can see how it works. And realized vol just means, SPX, the candles on it get bigger and bigger, up or down, and expect more movement. But that is the term structure that I see, at least for right now.
Let's see what we see out there in the world of VIX. I will say this before we get off the term structure really quickly, Mr. Rock Lobster. The structure this week, it doesn't give me quite the heebie-jeebies that we got last week. Last week, it was like eating off a table on the vol surface. It was kind of weird. It was so flat. Whenever I see that when things are happening and it's not a very quiet period, it always kind of makes me think maybe something else is lurking out there. I don't get quite as unsettled looking at it this week as I did last week. So maybe that's cause for optimism for folks out there. Read into it what you will out there, listeners, as we keep on going. Let's read into a little bit of VIX options flow, shall we, listeners? Let's see what's lighting it up. Is it a banger day out there? The answer is yes. VIX having a pretty hot week out there after kind of being asleep for volume-wise, at least, for the better part of the last month. Now coming roaring back to life. Almost 1 million contracts on the tape already right now, listeners. 939,000. We'll break down some of that flow, including kind of an interesting head-scratching spread that seems to be going up for size all week long. Somebody's got an axe to grind on this thing. We'll get to that fun in a second. But right now, listeners, 939,000 contracts on the tape in VIX. So, after a while there, we had to keep shaking the machine to make sure, is it on? Is VIX working? Is VIX starting up today? Now we're not asking that question anymore. VIX back to somewhat of a state of normalcy out here. The ADV 794, so threatening 800K again. That's up another 63,000. So VIX looking spicy, at least from a volume perspective, if not from an overall level perspective. Well, let's break down top 10 land. Let's see what's cooking. Everyone's new favorite vol indicator. People writing in saying how much they love it. It's not new. We've been doing it for a long time, but folks just kind of grok into it now, I suppose. But either way, let's break down a little bit of top 10 action, shall we, listeners? We're looking kind of beefy in VIX land right now. It cost you 206,000 contracts to break into the top 10. That is not nothing. And if you're looking for puts, you might think you're looking at nothing. Only one put in the top 10 this week, listeners. We are pretty much all calls all the time. So we are back to a firm call dominance in our top 10 this week, listeners, which is kind of interesting. We've been vacillating around for a little bit. Last few weeks, we've had a couple of puts at least to sink our teeth into. Before that, we were close to 50-50. Obviously, things looking a little bit more rock'em sock'em right now. At least they were coming into today. So a lot more calls lighting up the tape. Number 10, listeners, again, cost you 206,000 contracts to break in the top 10 this week. That gets you to the March 20s. I've said it before. I will say it again. A very reasonable strike, all things considered. We were through it not too long ago, probably will be again before March expiration, listeners. Number 9, 210,000 of the Jan 22s. If you want to get a little closer to home, let's say, I don't know, next week, and you want to go up to the 22 strike, there you go. Number 8, we've got 224,000 of the Jan 30s. Number 7, 225,000 of the Jan 50s, 5-0s. Number 6, back to the land of reasonableness. 229,000 of the Feb 19s. Number 5, our first and only put in the top 10 this week. You can probably guess what it is if you've been listening to the show for a little bit. These Feb 15s have been popular. We talked about them trading just on Monday. In fact, we had a flash poll about those. It was the Feb 15 puts versus the Jan 17 puts expiring next week. I'll get to the results of that in a little bit. But right now, those 15 puts in Feb, the only thing still open in the top 10, 231,000 on the tape right now. Number 4, 237,000 of the Jan 18s. Number 3, 267,000 of the Jan 20s. Number 2, 293 of the Feb 60s, 6-0s. And the number 1 size position in VIX options right now, 366,000 of the Feb 30s. If you were listening, that's part of that Feb 30-60 vertical that was going up for size recently as well. But let's get to some of that recent activity, shall we? Because it's been hot. It's been spicy in VIX land. Today, like we said, nearly 1 million contracts on the tape already. About 940 as we're talking about VIX right now. And once again, listeners, once you hear the rest of our paper this week, you'll see what I'm alluding to here. But this spread keeps dominating the tape and driving up the volume numbers. It is the Jan 18-19 170,000 of the 18s have gone up today for number 1, followed by 147,000 of the 19s for number 2. Number 3, 57,000 of the Jan 17s. Number 4, 38,000 of the Feb 16 puts. And number 5, 37,000 of the Jan 15 puts. If that spread intrigues you, it's going up for about 8 cents. Looks like the 19 calls going up for a dime. The 18 calls going up for 18 cents. Again, it's a sizable spread for such a tight spread. We don't see tight spreads like that going up very often. Even rolls, we don't usually see a one-strike roll, and there's enough size OI on both of these strikes to kind of obscure what the hell they're actually doing. Speaking of that spread, listeners, it went up again yesterday for size. Number 1 trade yesterday was actually the Jan 18s yesterday, 121,000 of those. By the way, 1.22 million contracts on the tape yesterday, so a hot day, back over a million contracts, followed by 120,000 of the AUG 42 halves. Those were opening at least, and then 95,000 of the Jan 19 calls. So once again, that Jan 18, 19 going up. Yesterday went up for 7 cents. They were buying the 18s for 27 cents, selling the 19s for 20 cents. Again, they did it about 100,000 times again yesterday. So it's been gumming up the works out here in VIX land. Before I keep going, Mr. Rock Lobster, this one's been intriguing to us. So we actually asked our audience about it right before the show. We said, hey, we've seen a lot of action on this Jan 18, 19 call spread expiring next week for prices around 7 to 8 cents. It's a weirdly tight spread for what we see in VIX. Usually we see things a lot wider. So it has us wondering, what do you guys and gals think about it? You want to buy it for 8 cents? Would you prefer to sell it? Is it just too tight of a spread to kind of get you interested? I think I kind of fall into that category. Or is it something other? Mr. Rock Lobster, have you noticed this pretty sizable 18-19 that keeps going up this week? And what are your thoughts on this $1 wide spread for around 7 or 8 cents, sir?
Well, it's kind of interesting when you look, oh my gosh, 18, yeah, there it is, another 150,000. Maybe they're expecting some kind of game, a little game into expiration. I think it could be like an inauguration play, right? There's the inauguration Monday. We only have one trading day Tuesday, and then we settle Wednesday. So somebody somewhere thinks there could be a little game going into that. Possible. Anything can happen. You're paying what, a dime for it or whatever. No, 18. Yeah, it's paying. It's just one of those things. Somebody's got a hunch. Somebody's got a hunch about something happening. So
somebody's got a hunch, sir, and they are betting a bunch, or at least size-wise.
They are betting a bunch.
Size-wise, they're betting a bunch. Right now, our audience likes it, Mr. Rock Lobster. 2/3 say they'd buy it for 8 cents. About 16.7% each say they would rather sell it, or they have some other thoughts about it. No one says it's too tight to intrigue them, so maybe I'm alone in that, Mr. Rock. I just don't get excited by $1 wide spreads in VIX. Is that a strategy you like, $1 wide spreads in VIX, sir? I know in the past you've dismissed things as the proverbial kissing your sister spread. Is this fall into that category for you?
Well, I mean, and the only way this spread pays is at settlement. So it's literally like you're betting on a 19 settle.
Yeah, you're betting on black
on Wednesday.
You're betting on not even black. You're betting on an 18 on the roulette wheel.
Exactly. I mean, it kind of feels like William Tell, where you really got to hit the apple, So it either is gonna, can it happen? I mean, what are the odds of us, trading a 19? I guess it's possible, right? It is what it is. It's a 5 delta spread. I don't know what else to say about it.
If we settle,
it can happen, and it will pay grandly if we close 19. So
if you settle like 19, 18.99, here come the VIX manipulation folks. I could just see it like clockwork. There we go. They put this spread on. They knew exactly where it was going. So yeah, I don't know.
Exactly. How do they know? How do they know?
So yeah, that one just struck me as odd. Maybe I'm alone. Maybe you folks like this one. Hey, I'm not gonna yuck your yum. Maybe you like rolling them bones on the old settlement. I tend to avoid that kind of thing, but hey, to each their own out there in vol land. This was gumming up the works yesterday as well, like we said. Outside of this spread, we also saw the Feb 19 calls going up 52,000 times and the Jan 17s going up 47,000 times. Again, yesterday, a banger day, 1.22 million, but it can't eclipse Wednesday. Of course, that's when we had that really hot, that really spicy move in the indices to the upside. 1.29 million contracts on the tape on Wednesday. The big dog on an explosive day in the markets, listeners, it's our old pal, the Jan 15 puts. 95,000 of those bad boys going up, followed by number 2, 52,000 of the 15 half puts. Number 3, 51,000 of the 17 puts. Number 4, 50,000 of the March 24s. And number 5, 50,000 as well of the Jan 24s. So we could have had some rolling action there as well because they're almost exactly the same size there. Tuesday, 661 on the tape, so decidedly lighter. 60,000 of the Feb 17 puts was your big dog, followed by number 2, 48,000 of the Feb 15 puts. Number 3, 32,000 of the Jan 17 puts. Number 4, 32,000 as well of the 15 half puts. Seems like that is it. Those are two popular strikes right now, 17 and 15 half. They were trading for similar size, maybe a little more actually on Wednesday. So somebody obviously has maybe a bit of an axe to grind there as well. Not quite as sizable though as this 18, 19 that they keep throwing contracts at. And then round out the top 5 on a decently light Tuesday, we've got 24,000 of the Feb 45s, getting a little bit of weirdo strike selection in there to round out our top 5. Monday, another banger, 963 on the tape. So far eclipsing today, but obviously a lot more time left to go today. The big dog on Monday, about 75,000 of the Feb 15 puts, followed by number 2, 66,000 of the Feb 20s, and then number 3, 57,000 of the Jan 17 puts, which, again, that's what inspired our flash poll from Monday. Number 4, 35,000 of the Feb 17 puts, and number 5, 33,000 of the Feb 35s. Let me just get to the results of that flash poll now as well, because it's very relevant to what we were talking about here. And, of course, I don't have it in front of me, so I will pull it up in a little bit, listeners. Mr. Rock Lobster, while I'm looking for that, Mr. Rock Lobster, sir, what caught your eye in the world of VIX options this week, sir?
I did see a lot of action in the January puts. There's still some substantial action in the January puts, a lot of open interest. It's like one of those things, because I'm long some 16 and 15 puts. I was actually able to sell my 17s and 17 and a halves for a little money, which is good. But I still probably own too many 15s and 16s. Because I did not close them on December 26th. But I think they've got, it's really weird because you've got the, you get this Mr. 8 cent spread guy, 18, 19, and then you got, they're putting up about 100,000 of the 16, 15 and a half and 15 puts for Monday. So, you look at that and you're like, okay, so do they crash VIX after, do they crash VIX on Tuesday, or does volatility come in substantially after that? So I think it's a fair question. It's kind of like one of those things I'm sort of waiting with bated breath to see what happens.
Well, we all know they're taking it to about 19 on settlement, so just mark your calendars for that now.
Exactly. By the way, we're going to laugh like heck. I almost have to come on VolViews next week for 2 seconds just so we can
just to check in, just to do your settlement check-in. Oh, where'd we go out? $18.99. Oh, amazing how that works. I could just see the conspiratorially minded amongst our audience just putting on their tinfoil caps and getting ready as we get ready for a little bit of Vol ETP. Oh, before I get there, listeners, I found our results of our flash poll we did during Option Block this week. We were talking about the size prints going up, these Feb 15 puts and Jan 17 puts, both going up for the exact same price, which is, you don't see that too often. For size, they're both going up for 26 cents. So I thought we'd ask you folks, hey, gun to your head, which would you rather buy? The Jan 17 puts, the Feb 15 puts? Are you just, I don't like either of those, I'm out. Or maybe you want to buy a diagonal. You want to buy a little Feb 15, Jan 17 diagonal and pay $0 for it. So Mr. Rock Lobster, the Jan 17 puts, which I believe was your vote on the Monday show, they took it with 37.5%, about 19% each for the Fed puts and neither. And then 25%, they want to buy a free diagonal, sir, for no money, which is looking kind of weird right now. But the Jan 17
I believe my January puts performed well.
Yeah, they did pretty well. If you had put some money where your mouth was, I did try during the show. I did try to nibble on some of those, but they were already gone by the time the show was winding down. So if you wanted to get your 26 cents off, listeners, they were short-lived over there. But hopefully you got some of them there, listeners. Our audience.
You had to be quick. 26, take 28, 2 cents. Who cares?
Yep. You know what? Too late. That's what I get. Another trade I missed because I'm busy hosting the show for the folks, Mr. Rocklop. See my level of dedication. You're out there front running all your people. I'm here. You're not gonna wait till the show's over so I can put my stuff on. See, that's the kind of nice guy that I am, sir. As we keep on rolling, let's get out to some of these weird and wild products out there, including SVIX. This one's been kind of, I think, head scratching, to put it mildly, out there, at least from an overall volume perspective. We've been saying for a while, what's it going to take to really gin up some action back out here in SVIX options? They added the weeklies, and that seemed to, if anything, decrease the overall volume. Once people saw the markets in those weeklies, they were like, oh, no thanks. I know I felt that way. I looked at those, and I was like, whoa, I'm good. So they maybe scared some folks off from those. Things seem to be getting a little better out here, listeners. SVIX, the ADV is moving back in the right direction, back to 9,300. It's up about 1,600 from this time last week. So far today, about 5,000 below and only 4,300 on the tape. So not sure if they're going to get there today. But at least the overall trend is your friend, even if we are still roughly half of the ADV that SVIX was at just, let's say, a few months ago. So it's kind of been interesting to watch, I should say, the ebbs and flows of all things SVIX. Mr. Rocklopsy, you've been busy trying to manage a newsletter out here in inverse vol land. Oh, by the way, SVIX right now at a 26, up 2 points from where it was this time last week, listeners. But Mr. Rocklobster, what's been catching your eye in the land of inverse vol land, sir?
Inverse vol land has been quite problematic, I have to admit. So on a day when SPX is up 1.25%, you would think, woohoo, right? Vol coming in. No, SVIX is up a penny. So, and that has really, to be quite honest, been the story with the product. I think over the next quarter, we probably see it going from 26 to 35 with some actual lower volatility. And especially if we can get any of this kind of congressional spending madness out of the way. But for the most part, when you have 6 months where VXX is unchanged or slightly up, it's going to be very hard for SVIX to do anything but go sideways to down. And that's basically what's happened. So it's been I'm not going to say unprecedented, but very odd period of time. Let's see here. So let's go, if we go SPX and we go 6 months, I think just for fun, if I go 6 months here, so SPX over the 6 months is basically gone from 5,600 to 6,000. Okay, so we've had a 400 point rally in SPX, which is pretty good. SVIX during that same time has gone from $48 to $26. That is the short vol trade. The long vol trade, VXX, has gone from $42.64 to $43.68, up $1.
Printing money, sir.
Like, when does that happen? When does VXX have a 6 month up? 6 month up. Like never, right? Can't say never because it just happened, but it does not happen very often. So, I believe the undercurrent of rates and debt and just, and it's funny. I was just talking to my wife this morning. He's like, congressmen are like the junkies on the street in San Francisco. You can fix the problem. The problem is you got to take away their junk, and they don't want to do that. So both potentially fixable problems, but very difficult problems to fix. And I think that sentiment, that sort of government spending destabilizing, right? They're almost spending so much money, they're destabilizing things. And it's been happening for a while now. It just keeps getting a little worse every year. And I think that's sort of where volatility is now coming into the market in that way. And it's kind of like just sneaking its head in. It's not, going full gangbusters, but you have to be realistic when you have SPX is up 400 points, Qs are close to all-time highs, and volatility, the vol future products are higher. The long vol products are higher now than they were 6 months ago. That would not have been on your dance card, would be my guess. So just for our, listeners observing, you want to see those normal correlations happen, meaning market up, vol down, and you're not getting it. So that does, it does give me pause. As bullish as I am on the opportunity in front of us, the market is still a little, it's a little hinky. I'm just going to say it. It's a little hinky.
A little hinky indeed. Well, you know what's not hinky, Mr. Rockloff, at least not anymore. We've been waiting for this day for a while. Is finally our beloved UVIX, sir. Finally putting its big boy pants on again. Got tired of hanging out around $3 for the better part of the last month or two out there. They said, you know what? Let's get big again. Let's get primed for action. So hopefully, listeners, you out there, you're ready for a primed, raring to go UVIX. We all know what happened the last time UVIX did a reverse split. Things got wild. I don't know if anyone's ready for a UVIX around 40. That's just crazy town. We did a 10-for-1 split this week, listeners. And so UVIX going from $3 up to 30, hanging out at 30 right now. So this is the day a lot of you have been waiting for. It will be interesting to see when Mr. Rhodes joins us next week, because he's been talking for a while about his little secret weekend UVIX trade. It's easy to throw 1,000 shares of UVIX in your back pocket when it's $3. I'm not sure if he wants to shell out 30 grand to do the same trade over the weekend. Might be a little bit of a different story. So I'll have to ask him if he's got any amendments to his secret weekend trade coming up next week on the show. But Mr. Rocklops, I know this is a moment you've been waiting for as well. What are your thoughts? UVIX finally putting his big boy pants on, sir, back to $30, at least for today.
Yeah, it's split. We did execute some UVIX puts going out to March, and then we'll see what happens. Although the 2x UVIX product, of course, it's a much more unstable product, so its 6-month history is not as good. It's still underperforming quite a bit. So 55 to 30. So it is still getting smashed. So if you want something more predictably crappy, the 2x times UVIX and the 1.5 UVXY, those definitely still get smeared. The 1x product, still hard to believe in VXX. It's not. But right now, I would say, that these are, it's up there and it's ready for its next curtain call down.
I will say
those are all for all you short vol people. They're all heady days.
Good times. I remember the last time we got UVIX to split, and we were all excited. And then it kept roaring up to about 40. And we were all like, whoa, no, that's too much. That's too much of a good thing. UVIX at 40 is kind of a wild, untamed beast. Not for the faint of heart, that is for sure. UVIX at a 30, still pretty wild, but interesting. You know what's not wild, Mr. Rocklops? This happens all the time whenever they do this, obviously. It's just fascinating to see. We're talking about the options out here and SVIX having a problem. UVIX, whenever they do this, they just absolutely kill their overall volume, at least for a while. In fact, once the split happened, obviously, there were no options even available for roughly 24 hours. So the ADV is up to 54,000. That's looking good, but that was before the split, obviously. Right now, we only got 10,000 contracts on the tape, Mr. Rocklobster. So whenever they do this, They always gum up the works for a while. You can't find the strikes you want. They're not listed. They're crazy wide. Have you tried dabbling in UVIX options at all today, sir?
Yeah, we do have a trade out to buy some puts in UVIX. So, and it looks like the trade is filling. So, and I'm actually going to put a bid in for a couple more contracts as we speak. So yes, I am dabbling somewhat in them currently.
A lot of dabbling.
You can't get some liquidity. It's just, it is not the best liquidity around for sure.
No, it's not great right now. I was looking at it before the show and I was like, ooh, no, I missed it. I'm gonna let it shake out a little. I know right after it splits too, the vols get kind of juicy out there for a little bit and let them settle in a little bit. Then you get some better levels and also some better liquidity. But we'll see how this thing progresses. But there you go, listeners. It's finally happened. A lot of you have been writing in for a while. What's going on? Why is this thing hanging out at $2.90 seemingly forever? There you go. Back to $30. Reset the gun for all of you downside UVIX traders. Let us know, how are you playing this out here, listeners? You straight buying puts? You doing put spreads? You doing something else? What are you up to out here in UVIX land? As we go on out to the product a lot of you like to use in lieu of UVIX, UVXY, taking advantage of some of the gumming up of the works of UVIX to put up some numbers today. 19 right now is where it's trading, down about almost 4.5 points, about 4.4 points from where it was last week. 65,000 contracts on the tape, though, so that's looking pretty robust. That's also against an ADV that's back up over 100K, 107K. It's up 16,000 from this time a week ago. So UVXY taking advantage maybe of UVIX's misfortunes out there. Where's the top position in UVXY right now? It's like about almost 20,000 of the Jan 25s. Also worth noting, UVIX top position out there right now, 10,000 of the Jan 4 calls. Obviously, this is all pre-split adjusted, listeners, so we'll see how all these work out. And then Mr. Rock Lobster's beloved VXX, 43.5 when we kicked off the show, down about 6.25 points. I think it has firmed up a little bit since then, maybe up to about 43.75. Either way, down quite a bit from where it was this time last week. Today, putting up about 20,000 contracts on the tape. Yeah, 20,000. That's pretty much almost exactly half of its ADV, which is 39,000, which is also starting to move in the right direction, up 6,000 from this time last week. Again, we're outside of that usually quiet December timeframe, listeners, so getting a little bit more juice out there. The big dog position in VXX right now, about 8,000 of the Jan 40 puts. Those are going out today, so they need VXX to get its button gear to the downside. If past is prologue, they are probably buying those. Again, anything could happen. 3.5 point move in VXX by the end of the day. That would be a lot, but we have seen wilder things. Mr. Rock Lobster, I know you like watching and playing a little bit of VXX. What's catching your eye out there, aside from the fact that it's moving perhaps in the way you would not like?
It's definitely moving in a surprising way. Again, today, solid market rally. VXX is unchanged. It's going to go green on the day, with the futures trading a little higher. Even I own some VXX puts. They're hedged. They're up a little money, but I thought today would be a day where I might be able to cash those in a little. And like as of right now, I'm not. So you look at it and you're like, okay. I think the futures have gotten, the VIX futures have gotten to a point where they just, from a ball point, they just don't want to go any lower. They're at actually one of the guys on Twitter, Chris, who's really good, Chris Sedile, he's like, well, I think they've sold these futures down and they ain't going a whole lot lower. So yeah, and I'm looking at I hedge with VIX call spreads, and those things have hardly moved in a week. So as a trade, it's worked out fine, but it's just you're not, we need some earnings now, right? So they can take vol down, but now you need some proof in the pudding, right? You need to actually see VIX cash get lower, the bid for the options start to go away a little bit. When you're seeing the 6,100 call volatility increase on a day like today, that's not a vol dropping day. So just as a note on that, ultimately the futures have to go down for the vol futures to perform a certain way, for the long vol products to go down and for the short vol products to go up. And they're just, when they're not moving, and you're not going to get the performance. Now they will eventually, but I think we got to wait for this 3-day weekend. I have to say it. We got to, we've had good news, ceasefire in the Middle East. Now, not too long ago, that would have been, that could possibly be why we have some rally today. Oil's held up relatively well, but that could be blows and positives. But, right now they're kind of holding out a little bit. So just, again, interesting from that point of view on, this is the volatility is kind of, at least for where you are in the cycle, and an easy way to measure volatility is where you are in the nearest 30-day cycle, because that near-term future is the thing that drives the boat for the most part. And I would say right now, we have a long ways to go for the Fed future cycle. And I mean, relative to where VIX is, it's hard for that future to go any lower. And that's what we have right now.
All right, listeners, and what we have right now as well is a little bit of the crystal ball.
It's time to peer into the future and reveal what the volatility gods hold in store. It's time to look into the crystal ball.
All right, everybody, let's get down to business on the crystal ball. By the way, if you're listening to this today, Friday, we have extended our crystal ball contest through today. The poll actually expired on Tuesday, but we thought, to be nice to you folks, we said, hey, we'll keep taking your prognostications through Vol Views Day, through Friday. So if you're listening to this today, get your predictions in now. Remember, we gave you 3 bites at the apple. You get to pick not just the close this year, but also the VIX high and the VIX low. If you hit one of those, guess what? We'll be charitable. You hit one of those, you too can win the grand prize and be inducted into the Crystal Ball Hall of Fame. As for the actual poll results, listeners, you folks are feeling a spicy year this year. You think Vol's going out hot, ghost pepper hot, north of 20. Exactly a third of you saying we're going out north of 20, listeners, which is interesting. Number 2, right behind it, right on its heels, spicy habaneros with a 16 to 20 range. So add the two of you together, pretty much 2/3 of you saying we're at least north of 16. That's also pretty spicy for end of December, listeners. And then 29.6% going the mild buffalo route of 12 to 16. And then 4.6% going the Tusa route, the bland oatmeal route of just below 12. Mr. Rock Lobster, what do you think? About a third of our audience saying we're going out hot this year in Balser.
I disagree with them. I think we'll end the year. What did I give a prognostication? I can't remember. I'm going to say 1401 for the end of the year.
I have it here. I don't know where we put yours down. I will make another note just in case this conflicts with your other one. 1401, and I thought we have it somewhere else, but maybe we haven't. Maybe we haven't gotten it yet, in which case, there you go. Now you are officially locked in for the end of the year. But forget about the end of the year for now, listeners. By the way, if you're listening to this on Friday, get it in before the end of the day today. Then the polls will close. The contest will be locked. Can we possibly have 3 winners again this year? Part of me says I hope not, because those prizes are not cheap. But you know what? We like you folks out there. So go ahead, swing for the fences. See what you can do out there. As we look at what we did this week, on the show last week, it was myself, it was Mr. Jim Carroll, and it was Dr. VIX. And all of us were feeling Vol a little bit spicier than it is right now, listeners. Coming into the end of the show, we have a VIX about a 1608, just ticking up about a 1611 now, but still not within our margin of victory. Jim was the lowest at 1661. I was at a constitutionally appropriate 1776. No joy for me. Russell was feeling the upside at 1881. Weirdly enough, all of us were correct at one point this week. But right now, no joy for any of us. Jim's the closest, exactly half a point away. So no joy for us, which means Mr. Rock Lobster, you get to go first. What are you feeling for this time next week from a vol perspective?
It's weird because you got the little shakes here with the market up, vol really not up. I still think we're going to be lower. I'm going to say like 14. Here, this will drive you nuts. 1492.
An American appropriate, but also not allowed to be spoken year of 1492 out there, listeners. Interesting. And I know you're all waiting, listeners, for the accurate prognostication I will give us next week. I think, I'm going to change my mind. I'm going to say, you know what? We're going to be a little bit north of where we are right now. I'm going to say 1635 for this time. Something's going to happen to conspire to move us back north again. So there's your range for next week. I'll see what the folks in the chat have on their brain in a second. Mr. Rock Lobster, if folks want more Rock Lobster goodness in their lives, where should they go?
Yeah, stop on over to optionpit.com. I just launched my Flash 5. So go there. You can see my little secret tricks for picking stocks using option flow. My Flash 10 has actually 9 of 10 winners. Hard to believe you could actually buy options and make money on all that stuff. But you can. So, and I'll go live with my trades next week. So go over to check it out, Flash 5 at optionpit.com. And again, put all the trades on myself. Who knew these educators putting on their own trades? Oh my gosh. Never heard of such things.
Who heard of such madness? Check it out for yourselves.
Madness.
Optionpit.com. Whatever you do, don't check our live chat. Z3 carping me horribly. 1640? What are we doing? I host the whole show for you for an hour, even though I'm fighting a cold, and you come in and you pull a Rock Lobster. You carp me by 0.05 right at the end of the show. That's the respect I get from our own pro members, listeners.
Gotta love the listeners.
All right, carping me left and right. I'm just kidding. Have fun out there if you get it. So much the better for both of us there, Mr. Z3. That is going to do it for us on Vol Views. Also going to do it for our on-demand broadcast week. I want to thank all of you out there who joined us throughout the week on the podcast side. If you missed anything, it's all waiting there for you. Yet another reason for you. Yes, I'm talking to you, Mr. Hardcore Vol Views listener, why you should be listening to the full network. If you want more in your lives, stay tuned. We'll be back in a little bit to talk the weird, the wild, the untamed world of unusual activity on Options Oddities. If you want to go there, if you also want to get in the chat and carp me, only one place to do it, theoptionsinsider.com/pro is the place to go to learn more. Then we're off, obviously, for Monday, so no option block, no crypto rundown, but we will be back next Friday, another episode of Volatility Views. Stay safe out there, everybody.
You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com.